What do you think is the most important quality for a racing driver?
To purely love what you are doing.
What do you think about that, Elon Musk? That is the Russian car doing some mad skids and drifts over here, right? But look at this guy. Just look at what he's doing. My word, that's crazy.
When I went to the zoo with my parents when I was very young boy, I was not interested in animals. I was interested in the cars parked behind the zoo.
Hi, Mom.
The cars nowadays are the quickest in the history.
Let's go! Whoa! Нормально, да, снимаем? Woo! Hello everyone watching Raw Take. Just ahead of Monaco GP and Formula 1, we are now actually in the Russian city of Sochi, where the Russian Formula 1 usually takes place. Now here's the pit lane where Lewis Hamilton, Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel park their cars. Today I want to see what the whole fuss is about when it comes to high speed and fancy cars. Come on! That's where the champ parked his car in Sochi. He actually won it 3 times here and a hat-trick of victories for Lewis Hamilton. Last year actually, when he won it, he all but sealed another title win. And this season he's unstoppable again, top of the charts as we speak. And here is the box of the guy who actually impressed me the most during last year's Russia GP here in Sochi. Max Verstappen from the Netherlands. Fantastic performance here. And right now, as it stands, he's 3rd in the rankings, although the gap is quite huge to overcome for him and pretty much any other racers trying to compete for Formula 1 at the top, with Lewis Hamilton obviously being the leader with Mercedes. Believe it or not, but Sochi's F1 track has actually been 30 years in the making. The first attempt to have an F1 track in this country was made back in the Soviet days in 1983. Now obviously during an F1 season, everyone sits here and watches the race over there on the track. But what does a racing track, an F1 track, do when there's no race here? The race is held only one time in a year, only basically a week. So here in Sochi, I will find out exactly what can you do at an F1 track when it's not operating as an F1 track.
We have a number of short programs in terms of teaching kids how to ride motorcycles, teaching people how to ride the car, and obviously if you're not too interested in driving behind the wheel, you can either be in the passenger seat or you can just go for the excursion program, which we have a number of as well.
So it's like a big school for racers in a way.
The schooling part is only a tip of the iceberg, so to speak, because obviously we understand that the average tourist in Russia that comes to Sochi is interested in sunbathing. And that's what he's here for. He's here to chill and enjoy the sun. This is like your average, this is like the Russian Riviera, you know. But obviously at some point you're gonna get tired of laying down, and that's when we come in.
Really doesn't matter what age you are when it comes to racing. See these little ones right here, they're already getting addicted. And just behind there, they can see what they can become, because the big bikers on serious machines are doing their tricks over there. You know. Whoa, these guys are fast. Damn. See, you can be that small and already be a motor racer. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. This kind of brings me back to my childhood when I tried to do tricks on a motorbike and instead hit the barn door, smashed the bike, injured my foot, and that's how my motorbike career was over. But look at this guy. Just look at what he's doing. My word. That's crazy. You won't see that kind of stuff at an F1 race. You know, a drifting car speeding past by you, which is something that you can do in an off-season F1 when the facilities are not used for F1. There's things like drifting school, for instance, which is exactly what this guy is doing right now. Oh my days! What do you think about that, Elon Musk? That is the Russian car doing some mad skids and drifts over here, right? Now, one of the things you can do in an off-season at an F1 track is called the race taxi. Basically, they will just let me be the passenger in this monster car right here. Сам. Одной рукой я смогу его надеть? Да? А можешь мне помочь тогда? О-оу. Hi, Mom. At least I can talk. Look at that, look at that. That looks better, right? Jesus Christ. Okay, I am super, super excited. I look looks weird, but I'm super excited. Let's go. I'm in. This is Andre. He's gonna drive me around. Ooh. Let's go. Let's go. Какая максимальная скорость будет нашей поездки?
Зависит от поворота, но в районе 230-240.
Ого. So basically Andre tells me that he will drive me at 230. Whoa! My days! This is insane. А вам совсем не страшно, да?
6 километров проехали.
6 километров, 6 kilometers in like 2 minutes. Oh my God. Спасибо, Андрей.
Пожалуйста.
Это было замечательно.
Всего доброго.
Перегрузочки отличные. Ух. Всего доброго.
Пожалуйста. Давайте поможем вам шляпу.
I need help. Ага. This was something crazy. Все нормально, да? Снимаем. Woo! Tell you what, if you've never raced, you should try that. And maybe you will consider not racing again. Now, as I've told you before, I like to do things raw and straight off the racing track where I was driven at 230 kilometers per hour. I am going to meet the guy who's just 23 years of age, but he's been doing that kind of stuff for more than a decade already, and he's an actual F1 pilot. And it's my utmost pleasure to be talking to Russia's pilot, F1 pilot, Sergei Sirotkin, representing Team Renault at the moment. Thank you so much for joining us here on Raw Take. I have to tell you, I just had a couple of circles around the track in Sochi, not in an F1 car, obviously, not, but in a very fast car as well. And I've never done that before. 230 kilometers per hour, and then boom, it's 60 kilometers per hour. So I got out of the car and felt a little dizzy. So the question is, how do you do that on a regular basis?
I never even questioned myself about about those things. I mean, I guess because I'm doing this for, again, all my life, all my career, your body is so used to such loads, in general, being in such situations for a long time that it's just normal. So, I mean, there is nothing specific I feel about that.
But do you think you have some certain characteristics in your body which allow you to take that pressure regularly and deal with it easily?
I think it's just generally there are some type of people who are better with that kind of lows, that kind of G's, and generally some other type of people who are struggling more to kind of feel fine, being in such a situation. So I think if you're a racing driver, for sure you should be in the first type of group of people.
What do you think is the most important quality for a racing driver? I know there's a whole range of different racing you could do, a rally racing, an F1 racing. I mean, but for yourself, for what you do, what do you think is the most important quality?
To purely love what you're doing, I think that's a key for. It doesn't even matter if it's racing or something else. I mean, if you want to be the best guy in what you're doing, you have to love it more than anyone else. That's this passion is something which keeps you pushing harder and harder, which keeps you awake longer and longer and wake up early and early every day to kind of go higher and higher. So.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I love what I do. I would not trade this for anything else, even though you have to carry the cameras around, travel all the time. Like yesterday I was in London, today I'm in Sochi,
Okay.
But I would never trade that for anything else because I do love what I do, and I agree with you completely. But how did you decide to become a racing driver back in the days?
Again, it's something you should not be deciding. It's not like one day you wake up and then, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to be a racing driver. It should be something which is in your heart from the beginning, and that's how it's been with me.
So you say you were born a racing driver?
I mean, for sure, I wasn't born behind the wheel of a racing car, but for sure I was born with a big passion to this, because as soon as first time when I was 2-3 years old, I could hardly understand what it is, but when I saw the Formula-1 race on the TV, I mean, I was straight away fully interested in that, and since then, I mean, I never stopped following that.
How old were you when you first saw your F1?
I don't remember, 2-3 years old. I mean, it was this very old. I mean, not the type of screens. It was very old, like massive TV with a little screen. It probably was even black and white. I don't remember, but I mean, it was, old days, really old days. So, yeah, since then, it was always with me. And I mean, it was always a big dream, but it was so far away that, I mean, like for us now, as what we would think about flying to the moon tomorrow. I mean, it could be good, but we never think it's possible. That's how it's been with me. So.
When you saw that first race, maybe there was a particular pilot who impressed you and it clicked in your head that you need to do
I think it was Schumacher and Hakkinen fighting. I mean, those years. I don't remember exactly specific race. I mean, obviously don't remember much from when you are 2-3 years old, but it was generally that type of era in F1. So.
Was Schumacher your inspiration?
All my childhood, when I was already racing in go-karting and so on, it was the era when Michael was winning everything. So for sure, me as a kid watching red car winning the races, it's not even because of the great respect to Michael. It's more about being a kid, seeing a red car winning the races. For sure, just pick up this guy and you kind of that's your hero. So when we went to the zoo with my parents when I was very young boy, I was not interested in animals. I was interested in the cars parked behind the zoo. So I think that tells you a bit who I am. So and that's a passion about the things we started to talk in the beginning.
Would you say that Michael Schumacher is the greatest F1 racer of all times?
No, I wouldn't say. He's definitely one of those very few. He's obviously the greatest on terms of the pure numbers. I think he's probably greatest in some other approach to his work in the team. From what I heard, he is a very strong in that type of his job.
So who is your number one?
No, I don't really have, to be honest.
You don't have one?
I mean, obviously, Michael probably is the guy who I kind of followed a bit more when I was a young kid, so it's always like a good memory behind that. But like nowadays, if I think about it, I mean, there are quite a few drivers which I would respect exactly the same, the same level. So it's so difficult for me to spot out one. It's, if we start to talk about one specific, I can always say, okay, this one probably was better here, another one was better here, and so on. But like to choose one specific, no way. Probably even unfair, I would say, to compare, because someone who was so quick 30 years ago, it doesn't particularly mean that he would be the quickest guy now, because again, it's so different things required from the driver to be quick nowadays, or to be quick 10 years ago, to be quick 20 years ago, and even before. So.
Since you mentioned it, how do you think the sport itself has evolved? Has it become much quicker, much faster these days? Because if we talk about like many other sports, like football, for instance, it's become much faster, much more physical. How do you think, in your eyes, how has the F1, the racing sport, changed over the years?
Obviously, the cars nowadays are the quickest in the history, despite all the limitations in the technical regulations. Technology is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, if we are one of those who haven't seen the F1 car, I mean, it looks like a space shuttle. It's incredible, how many things it has and how difficult it is to, to set it up and to be working with that. So from the drivers nowadays, it's not more about, first of all, the freedom as a driver. It's getting less and less. So if in old days, I would guess, the driver to have a bit more possibility to play with a few things and kind of gaining some lap time on that. Nowadays, what the driver can do is less, so it's a lot more about precision from the driver rather than just more like rough things, let's say. So now it's all about big pressure and being super precise under the big pressure and as consistent under the big pressure as you can, while probably some time ago it was a bit more about rough things and rough, idea of your driving, let's say. So.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying the driver is less responsible now, meaning that the team is more...
No, they're not less responsible, they're probably even more responsible at some points, but what I'm saying is that as the technology is absolutely unbelievable, is the things where the driver can play its role is less wide than it was before. But as you have less width, you have to be more precise in what you're doing. So if you still want to be the best, you have to work in very little window, but if you are there, you have to be mega precise, while in the past, obviously having much wider window, you could be still winning the races, not being, just using your skills, but not being as precise as you have to be now.
Might that be the reason why Mercedes is now dominating and the great Ferrari is somewhat lagging behind? Is there some sort of miscommunication now between the pilots and the technology and the team?
Probably not fair to say it this way, but for sure it is a bit in some terms in some places. But I would say Mercedes is obviously the greatest team. They're very strong now in terms of, in general, their approach. They didn't start like this year, same as the last year. The car they launched in the beginning of the season, it wasn't the best car in the field. It was probably Ferraris both years, which looked the strongest car in the winter test, but it was always a Mercedes who did a better job on collecting all the information through the test, being as precise and as quick as possible, analyzing all of that, bringing the upgrades for the race one in Melbourne, and then once you're in Melbourne, having the quickest car over there.
Essentially, their team works better right now than Ferrari.
I think as a team, as organization, as a group of people, yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And individual talents piloting these cars, they do have the strongest talent right now. What I'm saying is basically they have the perfect combination for an F1 team at the moment, right?
I mean, they have a very good drivers. Valtteri is very close to lose this year, so they are very on top with the drivers. So I mean, again, I would say as a group of people, as a team, as an organization, they are the strongest one. Even if they sometimes probably, or even if some tracks won't be the easiest track, easiest circuit for their car, as a team, they will always do the best.
I read an article just basically came out yesterday. It's the BBC, which is obviously the main pundit in the UK, where Lewis Hamilton comes from, and he is the national pride, obviously, having won so many titles recently. But they say that Lewis Hamilton is, in fact, not the biggest star of the season so far. The biggest star, they say, is Max Verstappen. Would you agree with that? Because I was impressed, honestly, last year when I saw him perform here, and I think he was very, very strong.
I mean, he's very strong. He's very, very talented. He's very quick, very, very racy, which is important. He has a big character, which is very necessary if you really want to be at the top in such a rude sport as racing, as F1 in particular. So that's right. And I mean, honestly, the last few years, Max was always one of the quickest guys. He was always one of the strongest guys in general. And then obviously, as he's still young, he's getting more and more experienced. He's getting more matured. So for sure, every year he's getting stronger and stronger. And this year, yeah, I mean, he's doing a very strong season so far.
Now I really want to talk about your career, because you basically could have become an F1 driver at the age of 17, which is pretty young, let's say, right?
It is young. I mean, it's similar to what Max did, actually.
Yeah, that's why I made this bridge to, you know, the terms of the age. When you finally signed for your full season with Williams last year, your first race, you get in the car. Did you have any sort of little knee shake or, you know, a little nervousness that you are finally at the pinnacle of world racing, the F1, and you are a certified pilot? How did it feel?
I mean, honestly, you know, it's such a long preparation before you actually jump in the car there, so it's kind of feel more normal once you are there. It doesn't feel like it's, I mean, it just feels like another racing series, another job to be done, and I mean, that's it. Again, it was such a long...
You're not excited at all?
No, for sure. I mean, for sure you are. I mean, it's such a long way that you have a lot of time to prepare yourself and to kind of accept where you are and what it is, and just take it as that's a job to be done. So, no, it's not like I was particularly nervous or something. It was just crazy weekend in general with a lot of, you know, nervous things. No, I'm not even saying racing. I was saying more about all other aspects of what the driver has to do during the weekend. So I definitely remember this weekend as one of the most painful weekends in my life. But I mean, not because of the track activity.
But what went wrong, do you think, in your season? You went into points territory once, that's for sure.
All depends, you know, how you look at it. If you look at it from the very simple perspective, for sure we had a very bad season. But if you look in how we started the season and where we've been as a team in terms of obviously our performance and how we reacted to that and how we worked since then, and you know, to be able to squeeze the best from our car, which was unfortunately the slowest car in the grid. I think it's quite a few moments of the year where you know, even now having some time off and thinking about, you know, the year, I can be quite proud of. Simply looking at the results, for sure, it probably sounds a bit strange if I'm saying what I'm saying, but I think we did quite a strong season. The more I think about it, the more I understand how good the things we did, you know, last year to kind of keep working and, you know, keep doing what we actually did. In such a difficult situations.
But Williams are not doing that good this year so far.
I mean,
maybe they shouldn't have got rid of you.
I mean, first of all, it's not fair to say because no one got rid of me. It was quite. It was basically the decision from both sides. Once we kind of saw end of last year where it's moving. And obviously, it was tough, as I mentioned before, to see ourselves where we've been in terms of performance over the last year. To see another similar situation this year, it was tough and probably a bit unacceptable. So I mean, it was kind of agreed between both parties that at this point it's not that I agree with that as a driver itself, but in terms of the general project, I probably agree that in some terms it's probably a good decision not to have a repetition of what we had last year.
So I see that you have no hard feelings, and you're saying how proud you were of last season. And
No, I mean everybody asks me, and for sure as a race driver, I want to be racing. Even if I'm in the slowest car, I still want to be in the grid. I still want to fight with the best people around the motorsport in the world. So I still really wish I could be there, and I do have quite a lot of, very good mates working in the team, which I would enjoy spending another year together. But in terms of the general project for all of us, I clearly see the points why we are not continuing. So
when shall we see you again on the track as a regular?
if we speak about F1 tracks, it's a difficult question. I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean, we are working on the possibility, but in F1 it's very limited. So unfortunately, it's not much I can say more than that.
But it is really hard to get there, right? I mean, it is essentially a very long journey to be at that top.
I mean, even once you're at the top, it's once you reach that level, it's still almost impossible to get the seat. It have to be so many things in the right time and in the right place. It have to be so many things together, and once they all together at one point, then the deal is done. But it's just, I mean, it's almost impossible. So I mean, it's very tough once you're not one of those guys who is for a long time in the sport and who is well known. It's very difficult.
But what was your favorite moment during that season? You've had a full season for Williams last year.
Unfortunately, I think with generally, how good we've been in terms of general performance, I don't think it's been a single moment where we felt like, we're the best and this is a dream. But we had a few good moments. One of them obviously was here in Sochi, where the local crowd, it was obviously being a Russian driver, I expected a bit of attention in the home Grand Prix, but what I had here, it was somehow unbelievable. And I mean, it doesn't even matter that in terms of the track performance, we've been quite poor and at this track, but apart from that, everything else was something what I would say, every single person, every single human would remember for all his life. Seeing what I saw, all of this attention, all of this support was, just, I mean, it's impossible to talk about that. Another one was probably Monaco. It was, still beginning of the year when we hoped that, with a few upgrades we can potentially make the car working better. And Monaco is obviously one of those tracks where our car was working a bit better than in some other places, and where the driver is influencing a bit more general performance of the, of the car. So I was always good in Monaco. I was always enjoying this track. It's probably one of my, or even probably the favorite track in all my life. So we've been very competitive there. And again, as you know, that you see some progress in terms of the track performance, and then still know that it's still beginning of the year. It's still a long way to go. It kind of gives you good hopes for all the rest of the year. So I would say Monaco was one of the very, very good memories I have from the last year.
And it's also the next GP that we're going to have at the end of this week, actually. So my question is, you're saying this is one of your favorite tracks, and actually, when I was a kid and I watched F1, I think Monaco was the most sort of interesting because it was right in the streets of the city, and to an outsider even, it felt incredible. What do you make of this year's GP? Who do you think are the strongest favorites to be there, to win it, to be at the podium?
Well, Mercedes again. I mean, this year's car, what they have, they do have very good downforce on the car, which wasn't actually always the case in the past years. So I would say it's probably going to be between Red Bull, which is traditionally very strong in Monaco, and Mercedes.
You mentioned the local support, because when I was here last year, I did hear your name all around the track.
Yeah.
You are the third Russian to represent F1.
Yeah.
But as far as I understand, you are the second driver to represent Russia here in Sochi.
Yeah.
How did that feel? Was that really, really special, being, you know, in a very select club, I should say?
I think what, in these terms, what was probably different for me than, you know, for other two before me, was that every year, obviously, the racing here was more and more popular in Russia in general. So once I was in there, you know, it's more and more people was paying attention to F1. So for sure, I got very big support in general from the country, from all the people all around. It's difficult to describe that, but I mean, me as a human, I will never forget, you know, what I saw here. It's, I mean, it was completely unbelievable.
But there is also a Russian driver, Daniil Kvyat, who just this last weekend had 2 points in Spain, which is a fairly good result for him, yeah? Do you have this sort of, I don't know, maybe a competition between compatriots from one country, like he is the fastest Russian at the moment, but I want to be faster than him, you know? Is there anything like that?
Not really. I mean, it's not a sport of countries, it's first of all sport of, you know, of humans. So, I mean, no, not really. I mean, you always want to be the fastest, whoever you're competing with, doesn't matter from which country he is.
What do you think of his season so far? Because many say here that he's been doing well.
In general, he's been doing well. Unfortunately, he wasn't the luckiest guy. He was quite often he got quite a few problems. This success last week was quite important for him. I mean, finally he could get away from the problems and unlucky situations, so he could straight away get to the results he probably deserved. And the second he was, which wasn't actually unfortunately the case the last few weekends before, that he was quicker than his new teammate. So it's, I mean, it's always in your head. It's always quite a good thing to remember. So I think or actually, I probably better say, I even hope that having this success behind him now and looking how difficult was the start of the year for him, he can build some more confidence.
Thank you so much, Sergey. And I wish to see you on the F1 track as soon as possible and win.
Yeah, hopefully this time.
Now, I mean, let's be real. Don't you just love it when things are put to clever multi-use, such as the case of the Sochi Autodrome? In off-season, it can do so much, as I was told and showed today. But make no mistake about it, in September, I will be back here for the Russia Grand Prix. And see you next time on the show.